Okay. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you're watching from. Welcome to our second attempt, I think, at episode 179. The fantasy timeline. So we are a part-time member, it seems, of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network. So hopefully we don't overlap with anybody right now. But if we do, we'll give them their space. But Bill and I thought we'd jump on here and see kind of how some things are going about a month after the real NFL draft, and then kind of a whirlwind of rookie drafts that have happened, and talk through some of the things that we did, some of the things that we saw, and maybe some things that are still coming up. Since I think we both have a few drafts left this summer. So, but yeah, Bill, it's crazy. I was looking at the dates, and it's been I think almost 7 weeks since we were able to record a full on chat here. So lots happened since then.
Yeah. We had a draft in Detroit, which was a real cool experience. And just crazy what a production the NFL puts together for the draft. And so many people in Detroit showed up. We got down there probably about 6, and they had already shut down the gates for people to get inside on day one.
Wow.
Which was fine because there was so many other things going on in the city. Parks set up, with big screens and vendors. And we just bounced around and enjoyed outside of the NFL area. And then Friday we did it up with the VIP seats and stuff, so that was pretty cool. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was a really good experience, and I got to do a tour of the stage, and behind the stage, the green room where all the players were chilling out, waiting to get selected, and pretty cool event. I would totally recommend anybody it's in their city or if it's close to just go experience it for a day at least. It's just cool.
That's awesome.
It's I do a lot of music festivals, and the positive thing about that is just everybody's so in good spirits. There's just no negativity really, and that's basically what this draft felt like. Everybody was just having a great time. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome, and hopefully it was good for the city.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Yeah, it was just crazy. Just to see, they have it down to where they are going to get every dollar they can out of you, like the NFL. But there's just so much else happening. There's just all the businesses in the area have to be, had to have been worth it to them also.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's been a few years. I think it was 2019 was Nashville, and I went night one, and that was pretty cool to see. Just everybody kind of descend on your city, and everybody in different jerseys and different experiences. So, yeah, and I would agree. Same thing. Of course, you see people in different jerseys from your division or from a different conference, and last Super Bowl and stuff, and you get to hear a little bit of trash talk, but it's all in good fun. And then,
totally.
That was the year after the Patriots had won the Super Bowl, so they had the last pick. And my old boss was a diehard Tom Brady fan at that point, and so we just kept getting closer and closer to the stage after each draft pick, and that was kind of cool to see people cycle out, and everybody still proud of their weight because their team was still up to pick. So that's awesome.
Yeah, totally worth doing. For anybody that's into Dynasty has to have a special place in their heart for the NFL draft, just because that's one of the biggest times during our season. So, we picked day 2 because we thought that traditionally that's where a lot of the top, offensive players are selected, and I think there was more selected in the first round than there was day 2. Or something very close to that. So it's it was the one year where it was maybe a little different, but it was still pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I think since we were on last, we did our own our own startup draft together.
Yeah,
So,
best ball 14 teamer was it? And
we found one. Yeah.
yeah, so that was different. That was our first individually or together, right? Like
Yeah.
for best ball dynasty team.
Yeah.
And it's our first team together regardless. And
Yeah. Rookies were included. This was pre-NFL draft, so that was interesting.
yeah, that made it yeah. I mean, we definitely, looking back, you see the values of kind of, there was a lot of values to be had just based on if you were able to get the right rookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel too bad here. I mean, what are your thoughts in general?
About our team.
Yeah, anything that you look back and
I mean, we went really light quarterback. So that, I think that's our spot where we might be a little I mean, we have it covered in a way because like I think we took Drake May over Tua, which I don't hate that even now. It's just that it might affect us early this season. And then we ended up with Daniel Jones as our second one, and we took Drew Lock just to cover our base there. So we at least have like theoretically one starter for the season, because I would argue either Drew Lock or Daniel Jones will be a starter for most of the season.
I would hope
and then
so.
We would hope Drake May would maybe pop on the second half of the year. So this might be a punt season. It might not be. We'll see. I like the rest of our team. I feel like, I think wide receiver we're pretty set.
I'd agree.
And maybe running back's a little light. But
we'll see. Hopefully Mostert stays.
It's 14 teamer too, so like you're never going to be quite as happy as like when comparing it to like your 12 team leagues. So and who knows if we picked right for like best ball. Like that's the thing. Like I don't necessarily know that you and I made a lot of decisions based on it being best ball relative to like versus just lineup.
I think we definitely talked about it ahead of time, right? Like we kind of had our numbers that we wanted for each position,
right?
And we went pretty heavy wide receiver, which I think traditionally is kind of recommended. And I feel real good with Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, and then we've got a couple of guys like Shakir and Shaheed, who I think feel like pretty good best ball kind of guys.
We'll and in that league you get points for return yardage, so that Shaheed's actually probably a top 30 wide receiver with that scoring. So that's another little thing in there that is something to consider.
We've got Deontay Johnson on there as well, so we'll see how he does. And then I feel pretty good about the tight end situation. So we'll see. Hopefully Andrews comes back healthy. We got Goddard, Sinnott, who I've got on too many teams, I think. And then
I think that might be my only team.
Really?
Maybe one other. Yeah.
Okay. But we picked up Vidal late, which was kind of nice. Seeing where he landed now. So we'll see what happens there with kind of the rotation if Dobbins stays healthy and how that running back situation plays out. But it'll be interesting to see. So a lot to learn this year. We'll certainly keep you updated as to how we're doing. I think we both kind of wish we had probably traded around in the draft a little bit more, but it was kind of hard to get the value in some spots and really feel confident about making.
And we're third, and even just the case of like you and me, like being on the other side of the world from each other, like that, it does lead to like timing issues a little bit with conversations and things like that. Like we might make a comment and then somebody might not read it for 10 hours and, something like, oh, maybe we should make an offer here. Well, there could be like 5 picks in between. And so like, those are just, logistical issues that, just maybe affected some of that, but I don't think it was like a material issue or anything like that. It was just something that, potentially could have been a challenge.
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll see how all that turns out. We've kind of talked a little bit any trades or anybody that we're trying to go after here. So I guess it kind of opens up in general. Yeah, any guys that as your things have shaken out over the last few weeks that you're trying to either make some trades for or that you're kind of watching values on to see if there might be a good window before the season kicks off?
I mean, I've added some Andrews. I just feel like he's the our plan in that best ball was to go. We figured there was a top 8 tight ends, and we were okay just waiting for whoever fell to us. And Andrews fell to us at 8, so I felt really good about that. And he's somebody that I've added in a few other leagues, not necessarily like going out of my way, but like there one league I had Herbert, a guy wanted Justin Herbert, and he had Trevor Lawrence and Andrews, and I had to throw a little, like Romeo Dubs and like a rookie that I picked up on waivers for Andrews and Trevor Lawrence, and
Nice.
so I just felt like I don't feel there's a huge difference between Trevor Lawrence and Herbert, and to get Andrews, like I'm totally happy adding him because I think that he's undervalued at this point. People forget, they look at his season stats, like he only played like 10 games or something like that.
Yeah.
So like, he almost only did half of his. He was still like a top 4 tight end when you look at points per game. So definitely somebody, and he's 20, I think 28 right now. He'll be 29 during the season or before the season starts or something, but still got 3-4 years that I feel pretty good about. So he's the one that I've actually been oddly like trying to add some Rashee Rice right now, just because of everybody's kind of a little antsy about him. So like on teams that I have old wide receivers like Kupp or Diggs or somebody like that doesn't really fit my team anymore, I'm trying to like move, try to kind of exchange those. And if we got to add something or get a little back, that's a move I've been trying to make. And it's worked a few times. I think I moved Kupp for him, and I got a third back also.
Nice.
Which I'm happy with just based on my team, because I had a lot of old wide receivers, so it just kind of makes me feel a little better about kind of shifting some of the age, even if I lose points this year, which I likely will. But old wide receivers are also somebody I've kind of been leaning towards adding. Like there was a study I read, I can't remember. I tried to look for it today, actually. So it's kind of funny that it's coming up now, or that makes sense, I guess. But wide receivers, if they have like a really good year, like it's either age 30 or age 31 season, you can just count on them having good seasons moving forward and not like hit a cliff. It's more of a gradual drop. I can't remember if it was age 30 or age 31. So if it's age 31, we have a lot of players who are age 31 this year. So like if we see like Mike Evans or Hopkins or Devontae Adams, if they have like really good seasons this year, it might be worth adding them, because it's unlikely that they're going to have like a monster drop in production. You can just slowly milk those points. So that's something I've kind of been looking into on some teams that maybe I'm, a contender that could use a little bit more firepower at wide receiver or a little depth. Because these are the guys you can get points to cost. You know what I mean? Like it's a really good deal. So I think Thielen's the oldest. I think Thielen, I don't necessarily know I'm looking to add him, but like he still had a pretty solid season based on the the situation that Carolina had, and I think he's 32 now. So if you base it off of last year, I mean, I wouldn't expect like a monstrous drop this year, but I don't think he might have been like a wide receiver 3 or something. So it's not like you're getting anything incredible.
Yeah, I mean, first half of last year, he was putting up really good results, and then kind of tapered off. But he will turn
he's not
34 this summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he's even older than I thought. But somebody else had mentioned, like, if it's a Hall of Fame wide receiver, don't think that they're just going to all of a sudden like hit a wall or a cliff. So like Devontae, Hopkins, Mike Evans, I mean, at least they're in consideration for Hall of Fame. So like those are all guys that I think I would feel pretty, and maybe even Kupp. Like I think that I am comfortable adding those guys for contenders. I think that's the main ones that are at the top of my head. Okay. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've been looking at trying to test the waters on Hockenson a little bit, starting with tight end. Some folks are kind of curious when he'll come back and what his productivity will be. So I've been trying to look at some opportunities. Like I had a league where I have Trey McBride, and it's really I'm kind of in a rebuild year, and I'm pretty heavy on tight end in that league as well. I think I've got McBride, Laporta, and Kincaid. So I'm trying to move one of them and entice somebody to take a younger upside tight end, but still get, it's nice tight end premium. Yeah. And add like a 26 first or something, like if I can figure out how to get some future value that way. So I've got a couple leagues like that where I'm pretty heavy on young tight end. So Hawkinson's another guy that, you have a rookie quarterback and he's coming off an injury, and just seeing if some folks are maybe a little down on him. But similar to an Andrews as well.
Yeah. I mean, Hawkinson's a good one just because, like, I mean, there's going to be people who get antsy because they're like, I think he's going to be out later than, like, I think he's going to be on the PUP to start the season. And so I think people might start to get nervous then. So especially then, I think it's a good time to try to make a trade for him. They just added Tanyan, I think. I don't necessarily know that tells us that much about Hawk, but like, I know it was multiple ligaments that he had to get surgery on. So I personally am kind of just like counting him out most of the season. And even if he comes back, I feel like he's going to be like Dalton Schultz, for the rest of the season.
Yep.
Like he's just not going to be a prolific tight end, but he can probably be solid and adequate. So it's perfect for what you're talking about, like a year on a rebuild. But let me ask you, like you said on that team that you have the 3 young guys, which one are you most motivated to move?
McBride is the one that I would prefer to move first.
Yeah.
I'm just, of course, Bills fan. So Kincaid with Allen is that's a big ask. And then, Laporta, with where the lines are going would be, a really big ask as well. Honestly, Laporta probably demands a higher value than the other 2.
I think so. I think that he's like they say always look for tight ends that are a top 2 option. And I think all 3 of these guys fit that. I have more confidence in the quarterbacks and the systems in Detroit and Buffalo. I feel like, you just don't know Kyler and tight ends. Kyler's a shorter quarterback, intermediate routes, things like that. Marvin Harrison coming in, like how much is going to be getting sucked away from him because he was basically like Evan Ingram, right? He didn't have anybody competing with him the second half of the season. So, it's that's an interesting one because it's like, do I want to get older or do I just stick with these 3, arguably 3 of the top 5 tight ends in Dynasty right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You could argue top 3, and some people would
Yeah,
argue.
I mean, some rankings, yeah, they're 1, 2, 3 in some order. So yeah, so I mean, I love, that's something that I've kind of borrowed from your MO over the years, trying to build some of the tight end room, especially in the premium leagues, where they're great flexes each week. And then when they have a big week, I think they become very attractive very quickly, so they can be a little bit more tradable. But I think having 2 of those guys feels great, and then that's where you just keep taking shots at younger guys as they come up through the draft, and then try to churn them, because for this league it's a trade addicts league, so I'm down to Trevor Lawrence this year, because last year I had Pickett and Ritter that I was trying to spot start. So it's pretty clear that I'm in a rebuild there. I kind of pushed my chips in probably a year or 2 early on that team and gave up a first this year. So trying to get back into some earlier picks in the next couple of years. Running back's pretty rough as well. I've got Gibbs as well. So he's a guy that, I'm trying to figure out, can I get a decent return there? But he's also young enough that, he could be useful in a season or 2.
I feel like he's a tough one, because I feel like I'm kind of, I don't like having really high, expensive running backs. That's just not how I play. I have my bias of being a Detroit guy, but I just wonder what his ceiling really is with Montgomery healthy. And I almost feel like his value is greater, because he's running back 3 at this point, and it's God, that just seems really high. And people are lumping him in with Bijan and Brees. And I mean, maybe he is, you know what I mean, this year. He outscored Bijan last year, so I don't maybe I'm being that Lions fan who's hypercritical of his team or whatever, just because I'm used to it being bad. But yeah, I mean, running backs are really tough. So to have any elite ones, it's can you flip it for who's can you get McCaffrey plus, and McCaffrey outscores everybody. McCaffrey, I think we just had a McCaffrey trade in.
Was it in OG or Superflex Army? Yeah, J-Pip.
Yeah.
Finally found a buyer.
Yeah, I think it was a first, 2 seconds, and JSN for Devontae.
Wow.
And CMC.
Okay.
So I think Devontae for JSN seems about reasonable, similar values, late first values for both of them.
Yeah.
And then, but a first and 2 seconds for CMC seems
good return.
I'd be happy as the buyer, I think, in that regard. But if you're trying to get it younger, I get it. Sometimes you just gotta get what you can for the players. So, and I don't think it's egregiously terrible. You know what I mean? It's I just feel like the value is on the older player side.
Oh, okay. So you'd rather give up the first and 2 seconds to get McCaffrey? I
think it's a good buy for a contender, but I also understand it as somebody who's looking to get younger also, because I feel like that's a late first. So it's JSN, a late first and 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's almost, I mean, I get it. Honestly, now that I think about it, it's a lot closer than what I originally was thinking.
Yeah, so this was a Dynasty Theory guy. So John Bauer and Mitch gave up the picks in JSN. So they're adding those guys to Josh Allen, Derek Carr as their quarterbacks. Nobody on taxi. So so they've got, stud quarterback, and then we'll see what happens with Derek Carr. But now they've got Eckler and Gibson, CMC and Kamara, Mixon, Pacheco. So their running backs are, really nice running back group there. They've got, young guy in Vidal as well. And then, Devontae now, Tyler Boyd, Josh Downs, DJ Moore. And then Evan Ingram, Cade Otton, probably their top 2 tight ends. I think, they're pushing their chips in this year, it looks like. We'll see.
I mean, this is the year to win it, because Sonny and I win it every other year. We win it on the odd years.
Oh, gosh.
mean, that's how
Is
it's worked. We've won it. I think this league's been in for 5 years, and we've won it first, third, and fifth.
So this is like the does Tiger win the Masters this year?
Yeah,
Which means the
right.
Patriots make the Super Bowl.
Right. Is this a home or away game for
Yeah.
Ben Roethlisberger?
So,
Or
yeah.
Jared Goff, or a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, have you found, like, during your rookie drafts that you've been accumulating more of individual players? Like, is there certain ones that you were like, oh, wow, I ended up with more of this player than I thought? Or
definitely Ben Sinnott. You know, I've liked his profile, you know, for the last year or so. You know, I usually catch up about a year ahead of the rookie draft because I've got a couple of Devy leagues, so it's kind of forces you to look at a couple of things. But I kind of knew going into it, I didn't really have a lot of the picks where Bowers would be available, and I didn't want to take him at the 104 or 105.
Yeah.
So yeah, my first round picks have been pretty evenly spread out. I've got a handful of. I don't have any Caleb Williams. Didn't find any 101s, and he didn't fall to me at the 102 anywhere. I've got a Jaden Daniels. Got a couple of Harrison and Neighbors, and a couple of May and McCarthy, and then a couple of Brian Thomas Juniors at the end of the round.
Okay.
See, so I'm missing.
I have like a list of 45 rookies that, like, I put up as my spreadsheet, and I knock those guys off. Like, those are the 45 that I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with throughout the draft. And there's 2 players I have 0 shares of.
Okay.
And one of them is Brian Thomas. I have not gotten a share of him, and it just hasn't worked, like, because I've been looking to try to grab at least one of each player.
Oh, that's funny.
And it just hasn't. I'm working on a trade in a 16 team league. I have an offer he's considering right now, so we'll see what happens. But
nice.
Yeah, he's how about like in the middle, like second round level players? Like, who did you find having more? Senate.
Senate is the big one.
Yeah.
And then trying to think, I didn't have a ton of seconds this year because I traded a lot of them last year to get.
I did too.
Contenders.
Same situation.
So I've got a pretty even spread between some of the later round wide receivers. I can't even think of some of the names. Who's the kid in Pittsburgh? Everybody is
Roman Wilson.
Yeah. So finally picked up a share of him, and then took Keon Coleman in the early second.
Yeah, you were a little aggressive with him. Like, you wanted to add some shares. He's a Bill. So
yeah. So sitting there, 14th pick is like, okay. I'm getting older in that league as well for wide receivers. So I convinced myself it was a good idea. And then I've got a couple of the running backs, kind of around the turn area as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sinnott's the big one because most of my leagues are tight end premium. So, anywhere between as early as like the 17th, 18th pick. And then there are a couple leagues where I was able to get him after the 20th pick, which felt, really good to me. And then there's only 1 or 2 leagues that
him go is like second round or second pick, third round.
Yep.
Kind of right where like Roman Wilson goes. And, it's interesting. Like, I have one Bo Nix, but I drafted him 9th overall in a 16-teamer.
Okay.
But that's sense. The only Bo Nix I have. Like, I really have no desire to have Bo Nix, but it just
same.
He makes the most sense in that setup. So, like, I picked Bowers at 104 in a 2 tight end league.
Yep.
So, like, those are. And I think I also got him in one other league, but it was later on. So when I keep track of the ADP for all the players that I've drafted, and just to kind of see like what I just being a spreadsheet geek, I guess, my accounting former life is influencing me still, but it's kind of fun to keep track of like where I got these guys, and I can kind of start to see trends like, got this guy at pick 28 and now I'm getting him at like 40. It's like,
Yeah.
feels like you can kind of see players dropping and things like that. And I first rounders, I think the ones I have the most of are Drake May and Odunze. Because I feel like those are the ones that were in that 107, 108 range most.
Yep.
And like second round, I didn't have many picks, so I don't have a ton of those guys. I don't think I have anybody in the second round that's like I have over 2 of. Yeah. I think, Roman Wilson I have 3 of. Malachi Corley I have 3.
I've got a couple of Burtons as well.
Yeah, I think I have 1 or 2 Burtons. 5 Jalen McMillans.
Wow.
I mean, he was just the guy I was grabbing because
Yep.
when I was watching, I still watch quarterbacks. Like I watch all their throws for the last season. Like there's people on YouTube that just cut it down to where you can watch every play. And it's funny because I was watching McCarthy and he had like 45 minutes was his cut down. And then I'm like, oh, this isn't, it's 45 minutes. Like I can even skip through some of it, So then I go to get to Penix and it's like an hour and like 30 minutes because it's like they threw so many more times than Michigan did. So, And when I was watching it, it just seemed like he had gotten hurt in the middle of the season or like in the fourth game of the season. But before that, he was like the one that was getting all the throws. And that's just what I remember is like, man, Penix was going at McMillan over Odunze, over Polk. Yeah. And so like that kind of intrigued me. And at the price that, you can get him, like he's in like the mid-third to early 4th range. It just felt like somebody I was willing to place a bet on and relative to who else you're getting there. It's all running backs and that's okay too. And tight ends. But I have 0 Jatavian Sanders. So Sanders and Brian Thomas are the 2 on my list that I have 0 shares of. Everybody just tight ends. I've just decided I'm only really drafting guys with high relative athletic scores. And Sanders was like 5.75, which is fine. But the like elite tight ends, you don't see them with that low of a score. So I've been like just waiting for waivers and grabbing the guys who scored 8 or higher. And so guys like AJ Barner, Stover.
How did Bell score?
Who's that?
Bell.
Oh, Bell. Yeah, Jakeem Bell. He scored like 8 point something.
Yeah, he was pretty high.
There was the second tight end for Cincinnati, Tanner McLaughlin, I think is his name. And he's like a 6th round pick. There was Culp, who was Washington's tight end. Tampa Bay took him. So just guys that like they're not really big names or anything, but they're fine. I can throw them on, like especially in like high premium leagues or 2 tight end leagues. Those are guys I'm happy to put on my taxi
absolutely.
And see what happens. And if not, you cut them. It's There's no
cost. I didn't cost
those guys. So it's running backs. A lot of the running backs, like on waivers, Isaiah Davis, the Jets drafted. It was really weird. They drafted
Braylon Allen.
Braylon.
Is it?
What's his name?
Is Edwards Allen? I forget what his name is.
No, Braylon Edwards was the wide receiver.
Yeah, so
Allen.
Yeah.
Braylon Allen. I think that's it.
In
the 5th, then they do Isaiah Davis, which a lot of people were talking about him being kind of a sleeper because he played at a smaller school. And then they draft him in the 6th, and they're both big-bodied running backs. So Apparently, Brees Hall kind of struggled at goal line, so they wanted to make sure to grab somebody who's a little bit stronger in that regard. So, I mean, who knows which guy gets the position, but again, you'll find out who's getting play and who's not, and
Yep.
you can just waive the other guy. That Watson guy that Denver picked up, that was a UDFA. He's a guy I've added a lot, just because he's kind of like Jaleel McLaughlin. And yeah, I think on Twitter there's been a lot of things about the running backs that play for what's the coach's name?
Yeah, Sean Payton.
Sean Payton, and they say like 1.2 running backs per year traditionally are top 24 running backs fantasy wise. So that's over one running back. And it's because, and I think it's 8 of the 20 top offenses throwing to the, or seasons of percentage wise throwing to the running back, 8 of the top 20 are Peyton offenses.
Wow.
So like getting the receiving backs.
Yeah. That matters.
From Denver, and who knows who it is, but if you can get McLaughlin or Watson, because I had heard, God, I'm just terrible with names right now. Who does he's football guys, and he does the Waldman, Matt Waldman, and he was talking about how he finds this Blake Watson to be like Jaleel McLaughlin, but a little bit more juiced up. So, somebody to consider if you can get them free on waivers, because you don't have to draft them.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, I wasn't too worried about trading into a lot of drafts because this is such a deep draft that you can get guys on waivers that you might have been drafting in a 3rd round in other years. You know, it's like I remember drafting guys like this Watson in the end of the 3rd round, because you're like, well, there's really who knows who else.
Yeah.
Because you're drafting like 6th and 7th round wide receivers, you know, and now you can get Jerry Rice's kid on waivers.
Yeah.
And,
it's crazy.
Like 5th round picks, even 4th round picks, wide receivers on waivers.
Yeah.
Like that's never happening in most years. So like we're drafting pretty much every drafted wide receiver almost in most years. So this is an interesting year in that regard. So like it's a year where I want roster spots, and I want and I'm not too worried about trading into the 4th round to get guys.
Yeah, I've been struggling with a few of my leagues where, you know, I've got to make cut down soon, and I'm trying to consolidate, and everybody's trying to consolidate, right? Like I'm trying to get end of my kind of bye week players, and you know, even if it's a small upgrade, you know, one league I just trade for straight fab just so I could outbid some other people in the year, because I wanted to get some kind of value instead of just throw some of these guys out there on waivers that somebody's going to get for, you know, 1 or 2%. So how have you been doing with that? Or are you just kind of like cutting bait and saying, you know what, I'm okay letting somebody else have this guy, and I just want to go grab the young guy that I think has upside?
It depends on the team. You know, like there's guys that I'm fine cutting because, like, at the end of the day, I don't know the difference between that guy and somebody else. So, like, it might end up being the best thing that somebody else gets to add them for free. And then, because I don't think I'm necessarily cutting that many, like, really good guys or guys that I really regret having to cut. Like, I'm cutting, like, DeMercado and guys like that. What's up, Short Logic?
Hey.
So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on the team, but it's kind of like my young teams have more roster spots, so like I'm fine adding those. But like my more competitive teams are, I I'm not even that worried about, because there's so many guys that people aren't even adding all of them. They're still free agents after waivers have run multiple times. So I'm fine just waiting and kind of seeing what happens like on these depth charts, because that's the big thing moving forward is we need to see, like, I have all these running backs and I don't want to cut any of them because
Right.
it's like, okay, well, this guy could be like, what's the guy that's in Dowdle? Like, could he be a starter? I mean, is he the backup? I don't know. Like, or is he not even either of those? Like,
Yeah.
Are they going to add another running back that gets cut? Does Miles Sanders get traded to them, or, things like that. So like, there's just all these players that if they fall into the right situation, like I'd rather them on my roster than some rookie that's like a UDFA or, that's what moving this forward through this offseason is going to be really interesting. Just paying attention to like who plays a lot or not at all during the preseason, because we saw that a lot last year where guys weren't getting played, and I don't think like the fantasy community as a whole read into that enough. And then those guys ended up getting really good big roles with their teams. So I think we really need to read those tea leaves.
Go Wolves.
Go Wolves. Is it game 7? I don't know.
No, I think they're just starting the series for the conference finals now.
So, because that was the big thing with Denver, right? Did they play Denver?
They beat Denver in game 7.
Yeah, that was a big comeback, right?
Yeah.
They were losing by 15 or whatever. Hey, congrats.
Yeah, big year for Minnesota to go deep in a playoff run somewhere. I know Scott Fish keeps posting about how long it's been and kind of what the projections are. But yeah, I mean Dallas is going to be tough. It'll be interesting. But brand new NBA champion this year, so no repeat. So interesting, some parity there in the league. But yeah, should be a fun series to watch. Now is about the time I start watching the NBA. 82 games is way too many to keep up with in the regular season. So
totally,
I can get on board with the Wolves here. But yeah, so we have a few drafts left. So it should be interesting to see kind of where things shake out, because everybody has a lot more information now. Now that you have some more of the insight, is there anything that you're trying to move around in your maybe the earlier rounds, or anything that you're trying to position yourself for?
I mean, it all depends on like my team. I feel like draft order has been pretty. So it's interesting because I'm in a lot of leagues that are dynasty theory leagues, and a lot of leagues with players I play with a ton, and like you can kind of get a feel for like what the draft order is almost going to be at this point, and I did join a random league that J Money Jarrett invited me to
nice
a while ago, and where you drafted the rookie picks. And that rookie draft went completely bonkers relative to the other ones. So,
That's fun.
It all depends on who you're playing with, but people who are a little bit more connected, I feel like you kind of have a pretty decent feel of who's going where. There might be, okay, it's this guy or whatever. And depending on the scoring, of course. Yeah, I don't necessarily know that there's too much. I mean, I pretty much feel like if you need a quarterback, you need to get into the top 8. If you need if you need a quarterback, it's the top 8. Like if you're willing to wait, or you're willing to just accept Bo Nix, then you can probably wait a little bit. But I've seen Bo Nix in a 12-teamer get grabbed at like 109, 110. I don't necessarily that's what I would do. Tight end, I mean, I'm just waiting because I don't necessarily aside from Bowers, and it's not even the greatest situation for him. Like, I don't know that I'm going out of my way to grab any of the guys. They usually go earlier than I had the chance to grab them. So to me, it's just wide receivers. Like, I'm really happy adding running backs, Brooks, Benson, Lloyd, Wright, Corum. Those are all guys I'm happy adding. After that, whoever falls to me, I'm fine. Like, I think there's like right around the 302 to 304 range. I feel like it's just pick who you want at that point.
Yeah.
Like, but I feel like I'm really happy with everybody through like early to mid third. Like, I feel like I'm getting a good player that could potentially contribute on my team. So wide receivers, they're just everywhere in this draft, and they're not all going to pan out, but they're all interesting, even to the end of the third round. So, but as for strategy or anything like that, like, I don't really feel like it's just learning the tiers and like, okay, if I want this guy, I got to trade up to the spot and that sort of thing. But there's nobody I'm really aggressively going after except for getting my one share of Brian Thomas. How about yourself?
Yeah, I found myself in 107, 108 a lot this year. So I've been trying to move up like into the top 4 where I can, if I can do it reasonably. I haven't found too many takers at this point, especially now that we kind of know that that's where, the end of the top 4 goes with Daniels, Harrison, and then Neighbors. Because I'd love to grab, another Jaden Daniels if he could fall to me, and then I love Neighbors as a consolation prize there. But anything from like 105 to 108, I'm trying to trade one way or the other, either up or back. So try to grab some value, and then if I can grab a Thomas or one of the running backs there at the end of the first, and I think similar in the second, like, I'll wait and see who's there, and then there's nobody that I'm so married to where if I get an offer to add a little bit of value later on, I've been pretty much auto accepting anything that adds a pick in this year's draft. So
yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with it. So I've not been doing a lot of pre-draft selection in my rookie draft this year, where I just feel like I'm locked in on somebody somewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, for me, I feel like there's always an option or two at each pick. So it's like, and I feel like there's not been a ton of trades this year, just because I think there's so many good to very good options, relative to other drafts. So, I agree with that. Like, and everybody's just, I'll just wait and see who gets to me, because there's like really big tiers once you get past like 108. Like, is it really that different for Worthy or Brian Thomas to like Pearsall, who's a first round pick also, that was picked within 10 picks of those guys, or Keon Coleman, or like Pearsall seems to be like the last wide receiver, or Leggett. Like, those guys are first round picks, and they're going sometimes towards the end of the second round. Like, it's just crazy. Like, you're getting a first round wide receiver, and you can get them like at pick 22 or something like that. It's just mind blowing. So it just shows you the how top heavy, the skill positions were in the draft. So Jason says, first, do you guys think Nix and Penix go in the first in Superflex? And I think Nix is like, I think he goes in the first more than he doesn't. At least in the leagues I've been in. But he's been got at 206 in a league I'm in also. So like, I mean, I think that's the lowest, but that's the most recent one, so that's why I'm remembering it.
That one,
I'd say
Yeah.
Penix traditionally is going. I've seen him probably the earliest is around 110, and also to about the 206. But most of the time it's in that 202 to 204 range for Penix. And he's an interesting play. That's I guess it all depends on like how you read that situation. Like,
Yep.
could they cut or trade Cousins after this year? I mean, could he just take over? You know, like, do you really want to touch Cousins right now? He could be their quarterback for 4 years, or he could be traded to insert shit team here.
Yep.
You know, like in October. Like, who the hell knows? So it's kind of an interesting situation with those guys. So like, I've drafted Penix a couple times, and I think both times it was like, okay, I'm either, it was in a startup that I'm in right now, and I'm like, I'm just gonna punt this year, so I'm okay adding him that way. Or it's like my team is so stacked that like I'd rather just store the value in a quarterback, and I couldn't trade out of that spot. So and then he says Drake May feels like a good value where he's been going. And I tend to agree because like you're getting the third pick overall for like 106 to 108 in Superflex.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good. I get Jaden Daniels going early. McCarthy's exciting because of like the coaching and the system and the players he gets to play with. And there's just 3 stud wide receivers. So like, that's why I end up with a lot of May and Odunze. It's like, you don't want to, I personally don't want to trade out of those. I know you say you want to, but I would much rather have Drake May or Odunze than to trade back and get a little piece. But I guess it just depends on how deep my team is. And traditionally I play with deep. Like I like to have depth. So like, I usually don't have a lot of roster spots to like, break
more
spots. What's your thoughts on Penix? Like, have you added any of him, or are you like avoiding him?
I will let other folks take the shot on that. I'm in a 16 team Devy where he was sitting on my taxi squad up until this year. And I got somebody's 25 first for him, which, it's a depleted Devy, so who knows what that will be. But each year there's surprise rookies that make it because, they don't break out until their senior year or something.
Yeah,
so
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. So, and that's why I took that trade because, I had Jaden Daniels as well. So it's like, okay, great. I've got, one of the rookies this year. I've passed on him a couple of times, but then a lot of times people are taking him earlier, which is great because that just pushes somebody else down that I'm totally okay taking. And so I am definitely not looking for him unless for some reason somebody else is more out than I am and they just want to add him as an additional piece, because I don't have a lot of Cousins either, because I traded away most of my Cousins last year when he got hurt to get like Baker Mayfield or somebody else back so I could make a run in the playoffs. And, I felt a little shaky about it. You never know, because, he's usually a pretty good performer and then going to Atlanta. But, like you said, you just don't know with that quarterback room right now. So, honestly, right now I feel good about walking in with Baker instead, and we'll see what happens. And if Penix takes over, so be it. So people will get some good value. And some other people will be proven right on their big bet, and you live to do another draft.
Yep, that's and Cousins to the Raiders. Yeah, it does feel like. That makes a lot of sense, right? Like they're one of the teams where it's just like this is your. The Giants. We could probably pick 8 teams that it would make sense with. It's gonna be fun to watch. I'm really excited to watch like the running back depth charts over the next 2-3 months. Like that's where the money's made, just being able to pick those right guys, or who's that wide receiver that come like if you're gonna pick like 3 like third round or later wide receivers that you're interested in having on your roster. When I say third round, I mean rookie draft third round.
Yeah.
That you are interested in that think they could have some monster impact. Who would you pick? Like, who's the Puka without like it being, there's probably no Puka, but like, who's that guy?
See, I mean, I like Brendan Rice. I mean, I like his attitude. I love the comments after the draft, right?
I mean, it's on a team that has not that as much competition as some other teams too, because he's with the Chargers.
It's pretty open. Yep. Devontae Walker is another guy that I've been interested in late with Baltimore.
Okay, yeah, I just added my first share in a startup I'm in right now.
Yeah, so those are a couple of guys that I've seen going quite a bit later. Let me see. I feel like most of the third is like all running back.
Yeah, like Javon Baker. He's one that's interesting. Like they drafted Jalen Polk in the second round, then New England drafted Baker in I think the fourth. They're a little bit different. So Javon Baker's interesting. He played at Alabama, then transferred to Central Florida. So he's got that pedigree.
Yeah, he's got some pedigree with him. Yeah.
He's one that's interesting to me. I mean, if we want, I see Burton slide into the top of the third sometimes from Cincinnati, but he's not one he's one I think you're going to have to wait on just because they have T. Higgins and Chase.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could slide in there and take Tyler Boyd's spot too.
Yeah, pretty easily, I think.
So, yeah, Corley's an interesting one too because I think he goes overlooked. So I think he kind of has that Debo-ish. Or they're trying to push the Debo thing. Like he's kind of like Debo, not quite as athletic, but just his body's kind of more built like a running back. So he could be interesting, and I mean he could be like somebody that Rodgers decides to lock into, and I think he's actually moving in with Rodgers for the summer. So like that's interesting. And I think I saw something where like one of the former Green Bay wide receivers is like, man, I wish he would have offered that to me when he found out that Corley had the invite to live with Rodgers. So. So yeah, that's actually a really good one. Because he's a first pick in a third round, so it's not even like a in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
So like he's early enough that he's still like 65th overall in the draft, like that he's really interesting, but he just feels like he's not getting the love that players all around him in the draft are getting. So. Yeah, he's a good one.
I think if I had to choose out of that group, I'd probably throw more resources at adding Rice if I can. Because I hard to argue with a Hall of Fame, arguably one of the the best wide receiver in the game. But you see it all the time, right? Like great players are not necessarily great coaches, so who knows if.
How about Luke McCaffrey?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, that's an interesting parallel because you watched Ed McCaffrey prepare Christian for the NFL.
Yeah.
So can he do it again with his next son?
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's definitely interesting, and Washington is has got a lot of opportunity there now with Daniels and new offense as well. So that could be a fun kind of ride this summer to see how he emerges, if he really develops, if his dad has done another great job getting him prepared.
Like, I just feel like he's going to have that work ethic, right? And like you see these guys who are just that bust their ass, and they also have the genes. It's like it kind of reminds me of Amon-Ra a bit, like because he came in, he's not necessarily the most athletic, but you knew he's going to work the hardest, and his dad was Mr. Universe, so it's like you just have that instilled in you to like know what you got to do to become elite, and he gets to see it from his brother, and I have a hard time betting against a player like that. I don't
Yeah.
have much of him.
Nope.
So even though I say that, like it's not like I'm going out of my way to add him. I'm just waiting to see if he falls to me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, he's somebody that like just betting on bloodlines, you know. So Rice,
Yeah.
like you said, I think there was another guy that was.
I mean, this Harrison kid is pretty good, I hear.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that guy. How about Malik Washington? He was a
For the
6th-round
Dolphins?
pick for the Dolphins, but then they just signed Odell Beckham, and so it's like
Yeah.
he's just going to sit on
Some
your
of
taxi
these-
squad for a year, and then you're still going to be hoping next year, and then they're going to add some
Right.
fast wide receiver, and
Right.
so like, yeah,
Yeah, that's where I have a tough time, even with the Patriots too. Like they just have such a crowded room of, like, I mean, they just need to get rid of some of these older guys. They need to get rid of Juju, and but they brought in KJ Osborne, and so they've got some good experience.
Taekwon
as well,
Thornton. They have Pop Douglas. It's just this hodgepodge. It's like it reminds me a little bit of the Giants, where it's just like, what are you guys doing? Like,
you
just keep adding players, and they're all like mediocre. And, that's why I'm really excited about Neighbors, but just
I
need
hope
a quarterback that can get it to him. And I actually don't hate the pairing of Daniel Jones with him.
Yeah,
because Jones will catch him like on those shorter routes, and I feel like he's capable of that. It's just the issues, deep routes and stuff, and the patience and the ability to get the ball deep. So,
but yeah, it's been a fun year to have the rookie drafts. Yeah, it was tough watching everybody go at it in the last league that I joined with you there, the Game of Thrones league. Is like, oh my god, I just need somebody. So I need to throw some offers out and see what happens in that league. 2 tight ends, man,
it's a different world.
Yeah.
I made some mistakes trading away tight ends in that league, and I've been struggling to get them back. So that's the one I added Bowers in, but it's tough. Like, granted, the pool for tight ends is a lot deeper than it has been in a long time, I think. So
yeah. Well, Jason, anytime you want to send me one of those, I'd be happy to oblige.
The mediocre players. That was a good one. I like that one, Jason.
Yeah. Should be fun though. We'll have that draft that comes up in a few weeks, right? Like middle.
Yeah, I think it's June 5th, maybe.
Okay,
is when
really
that starts.
Nice.
So, so that's like 2 weeks ish.
Yeah.
Might be 2 weeks from today, actually.
Yep.
So that'd be fun. I think Josh and I have the 4 and the 8 in the first round. So we're going to get two of our two guys. I mean, we've been chasing quarterbacks for so long that I think I'm just like, oh, good. Finally, we can add somebody. So,
so what I hear is Neighbors will be available at 105. Oh, you have 105. You got 105 and 108.
Oh, okay. So, like, I figure we're getting our quarterback. Who knows which way we're going to go there? Because Josh and I haven't talked at all, like, in our thoughts. And I know Josh has very specific thoughts on quarterbacks. So, like, it'll be interesting to have the talks with him. So, like, there's players he really likes. Like, he has stronger takes on players than I do. Like, I'm very much like, okay, what did the NFL tell me in the draft? And but he really likes certain players over others, and I can appreciate that. That's a skill I just don't have. So
so let's see, 105, you guys, 106. Man, I might get my first Bowers in the OG league.
I mean, we're likely not taking Bowers, and you have 106. You said.
I've got 107, so I'm thinking if 6 takes Odunze, unless they're just really needy at tight end,
or quarterback.
Tidewater. Yeah, I mean, quarterback would be fine too. I mean, they've got Bryce Young and Deshaun. Let's see, wide receiver Drake London, and that's it. And they've got Laporta, so Yeah, unless they just want to go tight end heavy. I would imagine they probably take Odunze there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
so we're getting Neighbors or
Yeah.
Bowers, or we're gonna get
Yeah,
Neighbors, Daniels.
Probably not Daniels. You're looking
So
at Neighbors
McCarthy,
or
May.
yep, you'll have one of those two quarterbacks most likely. Unless Short Logic or Stevie surprises us and they go quarterback early, and you might get Neighbors is probably the most likely to fall there.
Or we just, we'll see, because it's gonna be interesting. It's like if we have the 105 and the 108, it's like, okay, if we want to make sure we don't get two quarterbacks, do we just with the 105 make sure to not draft a quarterback?
You may draft yourself out of a quarterback.
And that's true, but like, is it that terrible with those players? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just brainstorming. Like,
yeah,
like you go 105, and if the top two wide receivers are gone, and you just take Odunze at 105,
yeah,
and then you know that there's still two quarterbacks,
yeah,
and
you have
Bowers,
67% chance of getting a quarterback at 108. Then
like it's just kind of rolling a dice that way, and so and now you just told me you're taking tight end, so it makes it that much easier. I'm teasing. Like,
we'll see. Maybe if it's down to one quarterback, I'll squeeze every drop out of you guys, and
you might be able to. So
move back one spot.
Jason says the 103 is up for trade, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So Tidewater's got the first overall. So if they take Caleb, they may not need a quarterback at 106. Then, I mean, yeah, because they've got two already.
Or they take Harrison there.
They could, and then trade out for a different quarterback. So it's like, do you want Harrison and one of Drake, May, or JJ, or do you want Caleb and possibly
Bowers or Odunze? Like, if you're going position, I mean, I prefer the Harrison side personally.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. J-Pip get himself a Caleb, and then Jason can kind of see what he wants to do there.
If he wants quarterback or running back, or quarterback or wide receiver.
I mean, Jason, while we've got you here, I mean, what would I need to add to my 107 to get up to your 103?
Yeah, well, do this behind the scenes. We're gonna be waiting for communication back and forth. And we're not sure he's even there. He could be in the John right now.
I mean, that's where I make most of my trades from.
I hear you.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks there. And he says it's expensive. Okay. Well.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
We'll work on what defining expensive means. So. But thanks for hanging out. For those of you who are kind of in the chat listening in, hopefully you had some fun. And if you have rookie drafts coming up, try some different things. This is the year, right? Like Bill was saying, you've got a lot of options in a lot of different tiers. So you can make up for it, it looks like, and still feel pretty good even after maybe your first waiver run too. So I think this is a great year to experiment with some different trade options, or, maybe you're typically trading around a lot and you want to see what wait and see feels like. And this could be a good year to do that as well. But we'll do this again here in maybe a few weeks. We'll see how the OG League works out. Maybe we get some folks who want to come on and do a couple drafts with us. Who knows? We'll get a little crazy here. So we've got some options, but hopefully it'll be sooner than 7 weeks before we chat like this again.
Yeah, we'll try to do it a little bit sooner. So it's always a pleasure, Drew. We're on the other sides of the world from each other, so it's always good to be able to chat for a bit. And thanks for making time in your morning. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, and with that, I think we are out.
Late.